ask Sophia to actually start the recording. There it is. And we'll go from there. So we have an agenda. What I'll do now is just call the meeting to order, and then we'll go through some introductions and a little bit of housekeeping pieces before we dive into the meeting itself. So thank you all for coming today. I appreciate it very much. What I'll ask you to do is, if you've only got your first name on the screen, if you could please edit your name tag on your little label there so that we have a first and last name appearing, please. And then again, if you're, unless you're actually the person who's speaking in the moment, if I could ask you please to mute yourselves, because we get some feedback on the recording and we don't want that. And it just helps manage that for us. So thank you. And we do have some controls behind the scenes to mute. So if people forget to mute, that's okay. We'll try to take care of it for you, but we're asking you to do it first. So what I'll do first, I'll introduce myself, because here I am talking away and nobody has any idea who I am. My name is Anne Berry. I am the Director of Planning and Development Services for the City of White Rock, and I will be chairing this committee. So you'll hear a lot of talk from me. And maybe what I can do is go around to each of the individual panel members first and ask you please to just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself briefly, and then we'll get to our other staff members who are on the panel as well. And in no particular order, just going by the order of the images as they appear on the screen, I'm going to ask Casey if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to us.
First, no pressure. My name's Casey. I work for Diverse Properties out in the Fraser Valley. So I work as the development manager there. Also CEPTED certified. So looking forward to contributing to it here. I live in East Beach and love living in White Rock. Don't love the commute, but other than that, yeah, that's a quick summary.
Thank you. Lynn, would you mind telling us about yourself?
Yes, I'm Lynn Sinclair, and I've lived in White Rock most of my life. I live in East Beach too, so nice to meet a neighbor. And I served on White Rock City Council for a number of years, and currently I'm on the Peace Arch Hospital Foundation Board, and I steer the Healthy Community Steering Committee.
Fantastic, thank you. Linda?
Hi there, I'm Linda Nielsen. I'm a retired resident of White Rock, formerly a park planner for the City of Delta. And sorry, I'm used to Zoom and not Teams, so I don't know how to change my name.
Okay, we can get that sorted out for you eventually. That's okay. Abhishek, you've just joined us. I just wanted to let you know we're just doing an introductions right now, and then we'll go into the orientation from there. But if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to the group, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Are we starting? Me? Who?
Hi, Sharon. So if I can just get you to mute yourself for now, we're just doing introductions.
I thought it was my timing. We're good.
Oh, no, I said Abhishek. Thank you.
Hi there, this is Abhishek Sinha. I'm an architect AIBC, and I've been working on multifamily 6-story townhomes since 2016 in Vancouver. So my experience basically is in the residential sector, and I'm looking forward to participating and learning from the panel. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Then I have Ian Tom next.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ian Tom. I'm a registered landscape architect. I'll be serving as the landscape architect for the panel. I currently work for the City of Coquitlam and previously worked for the City of Richmond in the context of parks capital projects. So I'm hoping to be able to provide that, especially that municipal context for landscape development.
Thank you. And Robert?
Hi, everybody. My name is Robert Drew. I'm an architect, AIBC. I work for a firm in Vancouver called Public Architecture, but I live in South Surrey, just north of the White Rock line. So Casey, I know what you're going through every day. As a background, I just finished a 4-year stint with the Surrey ADP. So 3 of those 4 years I actually chaired the ADP out there. So up there, most of them by Zoom or Teams. But we did start off way back when we were face to face. So I'm curious to see how this continues to evolve as a purely virtual way of actually meeting, or if it actually returns back to some kind of face to face. But thank you for the invitation to be on this panel. I look forward to contributing and learning also from the various projects that are being proposed. So thank you.
Thank you. Howard?
Hi there. It's greetings, aloha from Maui today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's if I lose the connection, I apologize. This is wireless halfway across the ocean. So anyways, I'm a resident of 1439 George Street in Uptown White Rock. My wife and I enjoy living in Uptown White Rock and all the amenities that we've become accustomed to just walking to. It's fantastic. So this particular project is within sight of my current residence, and I'm looking forward to seeing some new development and a new more modern look within the neighborhood. I think the new developments are essential to attracting businesses to White Rock. So I'm looking forward to giving some input in terms of that what I think is beneficial to the uptown neighborhood.
Great, thank you. And Sharon, welcome.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I have several very time sensitive documents that I'm waiting for. And if I do switch my camera off, it's because I have to text them to people. So I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to come and go. And also I have to leave at 5 o'clock because I have something that's been booked for 5:30, but it happened today and I can't do anything about it. But anyways, I'm a realtor and I've been on the ADP many times before for the BIA as a non-voting, and I used to have a business here and am speaking for them on the commercial, making comment or question on commercial development that's happening here. I'm also on the Housing Advisory Committee, and I've lived in White Rock and South Surrey since 1990. I live in Ocean Park now, and I'm looking forward to, I'm very excited about what's happening, and the vibrancy of thrifties and all that stuff is, so that's all.
Great, thank you. So there are a couple of applicants who are also on the call. We will allow them to introduce themselves when we get later on in the agenda, when we get to that portion of the agenda. So what I'll do now is just one, thank you all very much for volunteering your time and your expertise and for being here. Yes, this is going to be conducted over Teams. I have a background in Zoom as well, and took me a while to adjust to Teams also. So I feel the pain of shifting from one platform to another. So it's okay, we'll work through that. Anyway, this is going to be entirely virtual for these meetings. That was council's direction for this particular committee. The idea here is that this way we have a better opportunity to make sure we have quorum for meetings, and it enables really cool things like people attending the panel meeting from Hawaii. So that's another nice little feature we have for this. So moving on, we're going to do our orientation. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to get there. First, we're going to do adoption of the agenda. So what I need is someone, please, to move a motion for adopting the agenda. And you can just wave a physical hand or something like that for this time. Okay, Lynn, and I'll need a seconder, please. Abhishek, great. And then is there any concern with the agenda? Okay, so I'll look for adoption of the agenda, please. Okay, everybody. Okay, thank you. Adopted. Okay, and moving on, we have the minutes as well. So I'm looking for a motion from a panel member to adopt the minutes, please. Okay, Casey, great. Any seconders? Lynn, thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? I know most of you weren't there for the minutes themselves. Okay, seeing no discussion, all in favor? Great, thank you. That carries. Okay, so we'll do our terms of reference and kind of an orientation now. So you have a copy of the terms of reference in your package. And there's, within the terms of reference, the mandate for this panel is outlined, which is really the intent of the terms of reference. And what we're looking for is this committee to provide us with advice from an urban design and an architectural perspective on applications. And typically, you'll be reviewing development permit applications that may or may not be associated with other types of applications, such as rezonings. So we're really looking for feedback on the form and character of developments within the community. It's not a forum to discuss the land use itself or the density of a development. It's really for the form and character. So you have staff who will be in attendance on the panel, and I did not hit the staff in the round of introductions just yet. So we're here to provide support to the panel and to provide information on city operations as questions come up. So maybe what I'll do, Neetu, is ask you just to tell us who you are and what your role is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Neetu Sham. I'm the Planning Division Lead with the City of White Rock, and I will be supporting the panel as a staff liaison. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Sophia on the call as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sophia Bahari. I'm the planning assistant for the planning division, and I'll be here as a recording secretary.
So these are the faces you will see most of the time on these calls, although sometimes we'll bring in another staff member as needed. We have quorum is 4 members, and the terms of reference is specific as to the composition of quorum. There needs to be at least 1 or 2 architects and 1 architect and a landscape architect to form quorum to make sure that we have that subject matter expertise as part of the quorum. And then you have a staff chair for this committee, which is unusual. Most of our committees are chaired by members of council, but because this is such a specific committee, it's easier if I chair. I don't have a voice when it comes to voting. That's all up to the appointed members of the panel, but having a staff chair actually helps free up your time as panel members to engage in the discussion and provide that advice. So our meetings, speaking to one of Sharon's points about timing earlier, our meetings, they're actually scheduled from 3:30 to 6:30, but that would only ever happen if we have multiple applications on an agenda. We also will never schedule more than 3 agenda items on an agenda. So I would expect today's meeting not to go past 5 p.m. because we only have the 1 application and our orientation. So you're looking good today for timing. Typically we hold 1 meeting a month. There may be certain circumstances where we would need to hold a second meeting, but that will be very unusual and not likely to happen on a frequent basis. So we do recognize that everyone's time is very valuable and you have your own schedules and your own work to do. And so we wouldn't be looking to do that regularly at all. So once you have your agenda package, which you should all have received ahead of this meeting, we did have a disclosure statement that you, or no, what was it? It was a code of conduct that we needed everyone to send in. And I don't think we have them from quite everybody. So if you haven't had an opportunity to sign that and send that in, if you could do that after the meeting today, that would be fantastic. And then when we get to an item on the agenda and application, that's where we will need anybody in attendance who believes that they have a conflict of interest to disclose that they have a conflict of interest at that point. And then we'd ask you to step out of the meeting for that particular item. And then we'll let you know if you can come back in when the meeting's when that item's over, or as the case may be. So just something to be aware of. So basically once we get to that item on the agenda, that's when I'll ask for that. And when we get to items on the agenda, what we'll do is we'll have the file manager do a bit of an overview of the city's processes and regulations as they relate to the application, and then we'll turn the application over to the applicant themselves, and they'll provide you with a detailed overview of their project. And after that, what I'll do is open up the floor to the panel to ask questions or provide comments. And what I'll do when we get to agenda items is I will just go around, similar to the way that I did with the introductions, to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak and to provide their comments. And then if necessary, we'll do a second round as as the conversation evolves. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that after each comment or question, we give an opportunity to the applicant to respond, to provide their rationale or their feedback on that particular comment. And then once we've concluded our discussion, I will look to the panel to make a motion with regards to the application before them. We provide a memo with every application that comes before the panel, and within that we often provide some possible recommendations that the panel can then use to turn into a motion if you wish. Of course, you're welcome to come up with your own motions as well, and we'll help you with that as need be. And then I think really the only other thing to note about the terms of reference is that within section 9, there's the review guidelines and the design principles. So typically we would expect comments to relate primarily to that, the criteria within that section of the terms of reference. I'll note that not all sections will be relevant to all applications. It depends on the application you have before you. And staff will be present as well to speak to any city processes or any procedural matters that you have questions about as well. And then what I'll do now is just see if anyone has any questions about how the meetings will proceed or questions about the terms of reference. And if you do, just wave your hand. This is informal at this point. Okay, that looks good. So we don't need a motion on that one. So what we'll do now is move over to 1363 Johnson Road. This is the application that is before you this evening. So before we go to the staff presentation, I will just ask a question. Is anyone disclosing any conflict of interest today?
Yes, unfortunately, I'll recuse myself because it's from the same office. So yeah.
Thank you, Abhishek. So you're welcome to just leave the meeting because there are no other items afterwards. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are there any others before we move on? Okay, looks good. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Neetu to do the staff presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to try sharing my screen here. Perfect. I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the purpose of this meeting is to present the panel with a development proposal at 1363 Johnston Road. I will be presenting a brief overview of the project and highlighting some key city policies and bylaws as they relate to the proposal. As the chair noted, the applicant will explain the proposal in further detail as part of their presentation, which will be following staff's presentation. So the subject property is highlighted in blue on the screen here. The property is located south of Thrift Avenue and to the west of Johnston Road. A single-family home is currently situated on the subject property. The site's frontage is on Johnston Road, but can also be accessed from Winter Lane on the west, which services the commercial properties situated east of the lane. The subject property is located in a mixed-use area. Existing buildings in the surrounding area are primarily comprised of low-rise buildings of various ages. The site moderately slopes from north to south and is located along a bus transit route. As mentioned in the previous slide, the site's frontage is on the east of Johnston Road, and across this road will sit the 12-story multifamily residential development called Salterra, which is currently under construction. The property is close to the White Rock Elementary School and several small commercial businesses. Also, as seen in the map in the screen, several high-density mixed-use developments are located further north in the town center, And the neighborhoods to the east and west of the subject site are made up of mostly low-rise residential buildings. So just a brief overview of the proposal. The proposed development is for a 4-story building comprising of approximately 1,000 square feet of ground-oriented commercial space with a frontage which fronts onto Johnston Road. And above the space will be 10 residential units. The proposed unit mix is 8 2-bedrooms and 2 3-bedroom units. The unit sizes will range from 726 square feet all the way to 1,284 square feet. Each unit is proposed to include a private outdoor balcony or deck space. The applicant is proposing a total of 14 off-street parking spaces, of which 11 off-street spaces will be provided within one level below grade parkade. The parkade will be accessed from the rear of the building via Winter Lane. The 2 shared commercial and residential visitor spaces and the 1 off-street loading space are located at grade at the rear of the building. 10 long-term bike racks are also proposed within a bicycle storage room in the building, along with 2 short-term bike racks proposed in the front of the building. So in terms of how the proposal aligns with city policies, the subject property is designated Lower Town Center in the city's official community plan, as shown on the map here. I'm just circling the subject property. The designation intends to build on the existing character of the Lower Town Center and to reinforce the low-rise pedestrian scale of the area. The land use designation allows for multi-unit residential uses and mixed uses, residential and commercial, in primarily mid-rise to low-rise buildings. The images on the right side of your screen here shows the allowable density and height permitted in this designation. The maximum allowable density for the subject site is up to 3.5 FAR in buildings transitioning from 6 to 4 stories in height along Johnston Road between Thrift Avenue and Roper Avenue. The subject property is currently zoned CR2 Lower Town Center area, commercial residential in the city's zoning bylaw. While the proposed development may comply with the OCP designation, it is inconsistent with the existing zone in the zoning bylaw. As such, the applicant is proposing to rezone the subject property to a property-specific comprehensive development or CD zone to accommodate this development. This property is also located within the Lower Town Center Development Permit Area, which is a form and character development permit area. All lands designated within a development permit area and are 4 stories or more are subject to a major development permit to address building form and character. So there are 6 key objectives within the Lower Town Center Development Permit Area, and they are to reinforce the Lower Town Center as a destination for locally oriented shops and culture, to establish an attractive, comfortable, well-connected, pedestrian-oriented environment that fosters vibrant life, to enhance quality of life, to ensure the compatibility of new development with adjacent existing buildings, to conserve energy and water and reduce GHGs, and to promote views to the water. So the guidelines in this DPA contain sections on building design, the public realm, landscaping, and much more. As part of the agenda package that was as part of this meeting, the applicant's response to the DPA guidelines have been provided to the panel for review. So in terms of process, a digital public information meeting was conducted for this file back in April 29, 2021. The file is being presented for the first time to the ADP today for feedback. So the next step in the process would be to present the zoning amendment bylaw to council for bylaw readings. So that concludes my presentation. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So what we'll do now is we'll go over to the architects. I think there's 2 on the call, so I'll ask you to introduce yourselves and then go into your presentation.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you very much for having us today. My name is Majd Magdasi, architect at IBC. I work for Barnett Dembeck Architects, the architect of this project. Our office is in Surrey. However, I live in White Rock. I'll start sharing my screen. Sorry, who's the other architect you mentioned? Are you talking about the landscape architect?
Yes, I believe you have someone else in attendance there.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is Ewan. I'm from the PMG Landscape Architects. I will be the landscape architect presenting the landscape for this project.
Thank you. I'll start sharing my screen. Before I share the presentation, I would like to just share this quick video with you. So this is the lane, Winter Lane from the back. This is Johnston Road. Neetu actually covered few of these slides, so I'll skip few of them. The project is located in sorry, the project is located in White Rock at Johnston Road. We can see the White Rock Elementary School here and the Peace Arch Hospital located here. So these are the photos from the property. The first photo is from Johnston Road. The second one is from Winter Lane. There is existing single family dwelling unit, which will be replaced with our project, which consists of 4-story multi-family residential with commercial on the first level, facing Johnston Road. With 1 level underground parking, it will be accessed from Winter Lane from the back. As Neetu mentioned, there will be 3 stalls at the back for loading and commercial use. It will be shared. From the front, you can see the ground level. Here we see the CRU, 1,000 square feet commercial unit. We have the building entrance on the right, and we have 3-story above of multifamily residential units. Each unit, it has a balcony, its own balcony. On each level, we have 4 units. On top level, we have only 2 units. This shot is from the back. We can see that there is a courtyard, internal courtyard on this shot. We are using some high-end finishes such as aluminum siding longboard, 2 different tones. We are using fiber cement panels as well. This is the garage entry, the parking entry from the back. Similar material will be used from on the front and the back elevations. Site plan, so we can see this is Johnston Road here. Sorry, Johnston Road here. The commercial CRU unit is located here. The lane, Winter Lane, and the parking entry from the rear. Shadow study analysis. So the top photo is showing the existing residential unit. The second photo is showing the proposed 4-story building. The material we are using, aluminum siding, 2 tones at the top level will be the lighter, and then on the lower will be the darker tone, hardy panels or fiber cement panels will be used as well. The firewall on the zero property line to the north and south will be concrete. This is the parking floor plan. The entry is from the lane, lobby and elevator. There will be a gate here for security. The first story where we have the building entry to the north. We have our elevator for the other unit to reach the other levels and bike storage. Sorry, let me go back one. Yeah. The second story where we have the courtyard. So to access the courtyard, it's from the second story. We have 4 residential units. It's showing we have 4 exits or 4 stairs. It came from the code consultant requirements to comply with the code, even though there is a lot of stairs, but it's a code requirement. Third story is the same as the second story. The fourth story, we have only 2 units. And again, the door from the laundry for these units, it's also a code requirement in case you are wondering why we have a door from the laundry. Elevations, this handrail will be designed by an artist as required by the city of White Rock. We are applying or proposing fiber cement boards, panels on the north and side and the south elevations because the existing building is a little bit smaller. So from the street, you will see mainly the panels until further development for these adjacent lots. This is some sections showing the this is the lane, this is Johnston Road, the CRU located on the first level, the courtyard on the second level. Under the courtyard, we have a water detention tank. And I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Majid.
Would you like to share your screen or shall I keep sharing?
Yeah, you can keep sharing. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So for landscape, we can see along the Johnston Road offsite, the 2 existing trees and existing planters are retained. We are only proposing the plants like shrub inside of the planters. Along the building, we are proposing 2 aluminum planters and 1 bike rack. Next sheet, please. On level 2, we're proposing some programs like lounge seating and coffee tables, allowing the people to interact and talk to each other. The left part of the site, due to the slab of the drop, we have the enough which allows us to propose a large landscape with enough soil depth and soil volume. On the right-hand side, we're proposing 3 aluminum planters to define the boundary of the space. So overall, the landscape, the plants we are choosing are drought tolerant with low maintenance, and all the landscape will be irrigated in the future. So that's all for landscape. I will return this to the Majid. If you have anything, great. Thanks.
Yep. Before we move forward, I would like just to share one more thing just to give a better understanding where we are. So this is our project over here. This is the future development. Need to mention 12-story. It will be across the street. we can see these are the high rises located in White Rock, and our building, it's in line with the other developments, which is like 4 or low rise up to 4 to 5 story. And these are the elevations where I were mentioning the fiber cement panels. It will be visible from the street until further development for the adjacent properties. And I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Perfect. Okay, so what we'll do now is I'll just go around in the order of the panel members I see on the screen and just ask each of you to let us know if you have any questions or comments. And if you don't at the moment, we can always come back to you. There's no pressure if you're the first one up. Don't want to do that to everybody each time. We can always come back and we'll give the applicants an opportunity, and we'll try to keep track of what we're hearing from the committee, because that might help us with a motion at the end as well. So Lynn, you're the first one that I see on my screen. Do you have any questions or comments at this point?
I do.
Okay.
I noticed that the parking spaces are not, they were required to be 19 and there's only 14. And I'm wondering, either staff or someone can explain where that goes next if we were to put this forward without the adequate number of parking spaces. I know in the past, excuse me, we have done things like bus passes to people, other kinds of accommodations. And I had a question about the handicap space, which seems to me to be only for residents and not for commercial. It was unclear to me. And the connection between the commercial spaces and the store itself, that was unclear to me.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is I will ask the applicant to respond first, and then depending on that, we might have some input from the staff perspective as well.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Correct, we are short in parking stalls. However, we have a traffic study, and as you mentioned, there will be the owner will provide a compass card in lieu for the shortage in the parking stalls. Plus, in the study, they mentioned that so the 3 parking stalls at the back, it will be shared among the commercial and the loading visitors as well, because the using time for the commercial and the loading, it will be mainly from 9 till 6. However, the visitors mainly require it when the owners get back home and someone is visiting them. So it will be mainly used from 6 till 9, 6 p.m. till 9 a.m. To access the parking to the commercial unit. So this is the parking floor plan. So from the parking, you can use this stair.
You're not sharing your screen. Sorry, we'll need you to share your screen for that.
Sorry, my mistake. I forgot
That's
that
okay.
I stopped sharing.
That's okay.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so from the visitors and the commercial parking stalls, you can use this stair, which will take you to level 1. So you will go in the building to the commercial unit.
And could you speak to the accessible parking space?
Yes, we are required to provide 1 parking stall. So per the zoning bylaw, and we are proposing it here. I don't think we need to provide accessible parking stalls for the visitors as well.
So can I follow up?
Sure, yep.
So in other words, if there were any customers parking at the back, they'd have to go upstairs to get to the unit. It's not accessible, for example.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll get you just to stop sharing your screen again. Otherwise, I can't quite see everybody. Thank you. So Linda, you have your hand up, which is great. You are also next on the round of the go round. So
Perfect. Thank you. I've got a couple points here. So the first one is in regards to the parking as well. Parking spots are permanent situations, and a compass pass, is the developer going to provide those in perpetuity to the building? Because, you know, after a year, you don't have that access anymore. So to me, it's a very short-term solution to this problem. So I'm not sure where to go from there in regards to the parking. In regards to parking, it's probably part of the White Rock requirements, but are each parking spots going to have EV charging?
sure. So I think what we'll do is we'll have staff respond to the first part, and I can speak to the question about the compass cards. So because the applicant is seeking a variance to the parking requirements, that will be part of the proposal that goes forward to council through the rezoning application. And council will have to consider whether or not the components of the parking study and what they're offering in lieu of the parking spaces is appropriate from a zoning perspective, and that'll be part of that decision-making process.
Okay.
And then Neetu, did you want to speak to the electric vehicle piece, charging stations?
Yes, thanks, Anne. Yes, Linda, the applicant will be proposing EV parking spaces. They are required to provide rough-in infrastructure for the spaces, so they are proposing that as part of their application.
For each parking spot?
I will get the applicant to confirm that if that's okay. Majid, maybe you want to take that question. Thank you.
I think I'm not aware of this, if it is required to be for each or there is a percentage, but we can look into the zoning bylaw and confirm that.
Okay, and I'm not entirely sure if it's the same or different, but I think the new push is to have electric bike charging spots too. So that's something to look into as well. Sorry, I've got a few of them here. I see that there's going to be signage on the building, but the commercial, one of my bugaboos about every building is that you can never find the address. Is there going to be an address on the building for the residential component?
Sure, yes, there will be.
Okay. And given my background, most of my other questions are in regard to the landscape. I'm concerned about the courtyard planting. I cannot see the plants that have been proposed having enough light to survive. They might be drought tolerant, which is great, but I don't think that there's sufficient light for those plants that have been proposed. I think that the plants need to be both drought tolerant and very low light type of plants. So I think that all of the plants need to be reviewed, and the plants and the planters I don't think are getting sufficient soil volume. The 1 foot wide planters in the courtyard area are just so narrow that once you plant them, they can't grow any bigger. So I think that needs to be reviewed as well. So I won't go into the detail about my comments in regards to that, but the planting I think needs to be reviewed for this entire project.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that feedback and we'll note that, and then we'll ask the landscape architect to provide our comment as well, if you like.
Yeah, we will relook at the plants. Yeah, I did notice some plants cannot handle the shade very well, so we will relook at the plants to pick the shade tolerant plants for this project.
Okay, thank you. Just one last thing about the planters under the commercial area. Are they going to be irrigated, those planters? Because they're
yes.
under the balcony, so they're not getting any natural water.
Right. Yes, they are going to be irrigated. So all the landscape area will be irrigated.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Linda. Ian, you're next.
Thank you, Anne. Regarding Linda's last comment, actually, I noticed the planting schedule for the courtyard plan. It was the same planting schedule for the public realm, the sidewalk. So I don't think I was able to actually review the proposed planting for those species. I noticed the symbology wasn't consistent either with what was shown on plan. So I just wanted to raise that to note. I think my comments will be relatively brief. I will focus on the landscape, which for this project is relatively minimal, mostly most lot size focused on the building components. I did have a quick question to start though with the stormwater detention tank. How does that propose to work? What is that? How will that be used, and what was the water going to be used for?
If the applicant can respond.
The detention tank is just to slow the water going to the storm sewage system. So it will just slow down. It will be filled when there is heavy rain, and then it slowly discharge.
Okay, great. So it's to reduce the time and concentration.
Yep.
Okay. I did want to raise, without detail of how that worked, just that to be cautious not to over-engineer it. I feel that this component could be a pretty simple rain barrel type of component that would function the same way and would help to reduce that, provide that function without having a significant mechanical investment. I'll provide kind of three different comments, one for the public realm first. I did note the sidewalk layout and the public realm details didn't provide much to review. So just to consider for improved street elements, there will be what looks like a future mid-block crossing. Seems like that's the intent for that bulb out or that curb extension. So just for the future plans to ensure that they are ADA compliant, curb ramps, detectable warnings, possible crossing markers as well, because I'm not seeing those in the current layout.
I'll just jump in there just for a sec, just so you have some more context with White Rock. That stretch of Johnson Road is actually going to be within, we're doing a phase 1 improvements to Johnson Road north of Thrift, and this will be a second stretch of Johnson Road that will be having some future improvements to it. So those pieces that you're speaking about, they may change in the future given the new road layout and the work that's to happen within the city right of way. So we'll make note of those comments, but just bearing in mind for the committee or for the panel rather, that those are areas that may change within the city's plans. So
right. Thank you for that, Anne. So I guess the ultimate condition should just be consistent for the lower town center area. Just to consider also for the applicant, the potential issue of a grade change between the sidewalk and the residential and commercial entrance. There may be a little hiccup there. Regarding stormwater elements, I would recommend some improved multifunctional elements such as low intensity development, potential rain gardens, or improved soil volume for that streetscape component. I think that would be a good way to provide that landscape improvement or those stormwater functions, given that the building will be will take up most of the lot space on this development. Regarding the general landscape, I also want to raise for the existing tree along the sidewalk. It's shown on plan as number 2034. It will be pretty severely constrained in the existing tree pit, and depending on the construction activities and the proposed sidewalk works, this could very well cause a negative harm to the tree. So in my experience, it could be a very difficult and expensive job for the city in the future So just keep that in consideration as more details come out through the development and plans. And also for the consideration of landscape and lighting, just look into glare and light trespass from the street and courtyard elements. Ensure those don't negatively affect the residents, especially in the lower levels. Final comments here on the related to trees and landscaping. The comments for, I think it was one of the section 2242, the application actually just reads civil to comply. So that kind of stood out to me as not providing much detail and not much assurance for what's actually going to come through. So I just wanted to raise that as a concern that should be ironed out as more detail becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Tracking those. Okay. Sharon, we'll move on to you.
Okay, just briefly, a few things. So the commercial space is 1,000 square feet. Are you hoping this is going to be one commercial space, or is it for two commercial spaces possibly? Is the way it's designed specifically for one, or could it be two? Or could it be three small spaces?
I'll let the applicant respond.
I think it could be either one or two, but I don't see it as three.
So, okay, so the window, the way the windows are designed, it could be a door or two doors or whatever. So there is accessory to do the utility for the plumbing and the everything else that would be needed for two commercial spaces, as opposed to just one large commercial space. I'm just want to make a comment about, for the presentation, you may consider you need new pictures. Those pictures you're showing are from prior to any of the development that's really showing now, and it doesn't show the form and character of the neighborhood because the Bosa Plaza is completely built. The construction across the street is well underway. There's other things going on, so it doesn't really, it stands out as an anomaly, and really the form and character of the neighborhood has already changed since then. So I think it would be helpful for you to do that for people that are looking from the outside in. So just wondering about, so the 3 stalls for the commercial, you need 3 for that kind of square footage plus a loading bay. Is that correct, Anne? For within that, what's required for commercial?
1 loading bay is a requirement, and then Nitu, the commercial parking space, it's based on floor area. So I will just ask Nitu to confirm that it is 3. So it's a variance within the parking overall is within the residential parking component. Is that right, Nitu?
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
Okay, so just wondering about that, because if it is 2 businesses and there's 3 commercial parking spots, a little awkward. I mean, there's street parking, but and also I'm not sure if there's changes to all of the parking requirements with all of the changes with the transit-oriented development, that it is lessened, because this has come forward obviously a long time ago before a lot of changes. And I know that we're not on a hub, but it is on a transit line. It's close, it's on a main street. My other question then being, this did come forward a long time ago, and personally, it feels like, is there opportunity? I know we're not supposed to, this is just a comment, that are we underestimating the size of this building as what it actually could be at this point in time with all of the changes? And if it was a higher building, even a 6-story building, where would the parking requirement, they would have to go another, I'm assuming another floor lower for more parking, which would give sufficient parking for the building possibly at that time. So that's just a comment that I have, because we're in a transitional zone, and I know that this 2021 was a long time ago. So just wondering about that. And the EV parking, EV, I have rarely seen it that every single spot gets an EV. They would have a charging station. So I would find it, I would find it unlikely personally that they would have that. That's just a comment. Is the commercial accessible from the street? Is it wheelchair accessible from the street level? It's on a slope there. Is there a ramp that goes up into the buildings?
It is, yes, it is accessible.
Okay. And I missed something. Is that an open courtyard or is it a skylight?
It is an open courtyard.
So when we have like a monument amount of rain, where does that drain? How does that get drained? Like where it's the courtyard is attached to the storm, and that's what the holding tank, is that what you were talking about?
Correct. It will be attached to the storm water management. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's about it for me right now.
Great.
And those
So
are
what-
comments, just wondering in general about a few of those things.
So I'm going to speak to the two that were related to the height and density question and the transit-oriented areas, because that's not part of the application. And just to confirm for the panel's interest, the province has not designated the city of White Rock as a transit-oriented area at this time. So while it is on a transit route, that is part of the considerations when it comes to parking variances. For example, the application itself is consistent with the OCP designation within the OCP. So if council were to consider future changes to the designation, that is when any changes to the density could be considered. But at this time, the application is consistent. So all that they're working with right now is a rezoning application and then the development permit, which is what's really before this committee. So great questions, but a bit out of the scope of what we're talking about today for this application. I know that's your housing committee hat poking in there a little bit though, right? Yeah. Okay. And then I think the question with regards to the accessibility piece for the front entrance is required, and that is a BC building code requirement as well. So there's an obligation to make that happen. And I don't know if I missed anything else that you had there, Sharon.
I think that's basically it. It's just, and I know Linda mentioned something about the signage, and just the signage would have to go. I don't know if the signage bylaw has been updated at all. It was updated a long time ago, and I imagine that it needs to be, because a lot of the issues for businesses are the plantings, which are lovely to have along Johnson Road, grow trees in front of signs, you can't read them. So there is an issue with the size of signs and what's on the signs and everything. So I don't know where you're at for the sign bylaw. I haven't read the sign bylaw in a long time.
It has not been updated yet. It is within one of council's strategic priorities to get there, but we just haven't gotten there yet because of all the housing changes. So
okay.
To be continued, that
Great.
one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. Okay, Howard, we'll go to you next, if you don't mind, all the way from, was it Maui, you said?
Yeah, down in Maui right now. Anyway, I've shared a lot of the question, or I had the same questions, particularly some of Sharon's concerns about the hole in the middle of the building. I find it a bit puzzling, the design that has this opening that's uncovered, that essentially is 4 stories high. To me, it's strange. I don't understand, with regard to building envelope concerns, things like that. It's open to the elements above, and I just don't know how, when it snows, and if you get a heavy storm of snow, where's that snow going to? I mean, to me, it's just potentially a real issue in terms of building envelope design. I don't get it. And particularly the questions that came up about landscape being able to survive any planting, being able to survive to me, it's like a well. I guess if I was standing on the roof of the building, I wish the architect's computer animation would have perhaps shown that opening on the roof and what it would look like going down into those 4 stories down, because you've got the back side of all 10 units, I believe, would have some sort of exposure to that opening. I mean, I can see if it had a glass roof on it, it would be an atrium, and maybe you could pull off tropicals or something like that. But I'm not sure about that particular aspect of this design. It's confusing to me, and I just think it has to be reconsidered at how that atrium or how that opening is detailed.
Okay, so we'll ask the applicant to respond to that one. Sharon, I'll come back to you once everyone's had an opportunity to get their comments in for the first round.
Thank you, Harry, for the comment. I think at one point there was a proposal with a glazing at the top, but the city, I think, engineering department required to get rid of the glazing on top of it. So right now it's a 3-story high. It's not 4-story because it's on the second level, so it's not that deep. We are proposing now some glazing to cover the exterior corridors, but I think these walls will be considered as exterior walls, so it will be similar to any exterior wall with a drainage. We can consider this as a roof deck, so I don't see any issues with rain or snow.
The other question I have, just as a general question, is this a strata titled project, or is this a rental building intention?
I'm not sure. I'll let the owner attend. Are you in the call? Can you answer that question?
I don't think we have them on the call. Or do we need to? We don't, or we do?
I think he is there, but he's muted.
Yes, and we do have.
Oh, we do? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, if you're there and you'd like to respond, go ahead.
I see your point. If it is strata, then we are good. Someone will take care of the courtyard. If it is rental, we still need to take care of the courtyard somehow.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a sectioned strata, commercial and residential. And I was just curious about, around the issue of a rental availability. Whether that's a consideration in this application at all, that it's for rental or for individual ownership. That'd be a question that I would have.
Sure. So those are really questions intended for council through the rezoning process. The role of the panel here, we could certainly answer the question for the panel, but the role of the panel is really to address the design elements themselves, not the composition of the building ownership. But definitely that's something that will be addressed when this reports back to council as to what that model will look like for sure.
No further questions from me.
Thank you. So I know that there's a couple of hands that are up from people who want to ask a follow-up question. What I'm going to do is make sure that everyone on the panel first who hasn't spoken gets a chance to speak first, and then we'll come back to those of you who have follow-up questions. So Robert, I'll go over to you next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question to Madam Chair. There are some decisions that were made on the design. It used to be like architectural design decisions, and we've kind of already alluded to some of them, but they have an impact on the exterior. So are we okay to comment on those?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have about maybe 5 minutes of comments and concerns here and a couple of questions. So on the public concerns, SEPTED, I have a couple of SEPTED issues. One is the condition that's created in the southeast corner of the building at the exit there, where we've got an alcove off the sidewalk, which I think will be challenging from the SEPTED point of view. So I think when the city gets to that point of reviewing this application based on SEPTED, they'll also have similar concerns. I also have a concern, which I didn't understand until you gave your presentation today, is that the commercial parking spaces are going to enter the building and walk through that corridor to get to the commercial unit. It's also the same corridor that the residents are exiting, which creates I think, a SEPTED issue between the commercial uses. That door will likely be open, so anybody can come in the back door. And it is a SEPTED issue with respect to the residents' safety. I think once they're inside the building, nobody can monitor them unless you have somebody actually monitoring them. So I just point that out as a concern. You don't have to address it as a question or an answer. In terms of accessibility, Ian already raised that. I think reconciling the grades at the northeast corner of the property where you have your residential entry and your commercial entry are going to be, and also accessible access to that deck area is going to be really hard to reconcile. So you'll have to really look at that carefully. I'm not too sure it's going to look exactly the way you presented it today. In terms of stormwater, I thank you very much for thinking about managing stormwater and in a way that there probably are simpler ways, as Ian has pointed out. But just as a comment, if you don't find a simpler way to handle it, you will end up with an access panel in your courtyard, some kind of 3 foot, 4 foot wide plastic cover that's going to be providing access for maintenance into that septed. So it may not be exactly what you're hoping for. So I would encourage you, just like Ian has, maybe find a simpler solution. Maybe there's somewhere in the parkade, I don't know, you can probably find some space for it. Certainly more cost-effective way to do that. Okay, in terms of neighborhood concerns, you seem to meet all the intent of the OCP, so I don't have any concerns there. And the site context, similar. I have no concern about the site context. The streetscape, on the other hand, I do have a couple of concerns. I didn't quite understand how that railing that is the interface between the sidewalk and the deck was going to be handled. It definitely is going to be challenging, and you have to do something with the grade change across there. My understanding, based on your presentation earlier, is that an artist will be engaged to deal with the design of that feature. The way it's represented on your drawings, it looks like it's sharing some of the detailing from your residential railings above. And I'm just not too sure that in this part of like the lower town center, a residential railing at grade will be the right solution from an urban realm perspective. So I'm hoping then that the actual designer of this system will come up with something that might be a little less residential and more engaging than a super tall residential railing. I think it's going to be really important to pull that off. I'd almost encourage the city to pull that away from the development permit application and leave it as a blank palette and require some kind of, I guess it'd be a separate, I don't know how your public art works exactly, but if it's part of the public art or something like, it probably wants to be designed a little bit more carefully before it's goes to through approvals. And if it is like what you're showing there, there's also a bunch of maintenance concerns about how you clean the glass, especially on the backside. So those are things I'm sure you'll figure out eventually. The deck space, because deck spaces are great when they're inhabited. They're just, in this case, because you've got a 3-dimensional separation between the sidewalk and the retail unit behind, there's a certain disengagement I find with the public realm. It's in the z-axis and it's also in the x-axis. And unless you actually have a restaurant or a cafe and some kind of covering over top of that during the winter or the summer or the spring and fall months, you run the risk of it being a dead space and separating the wonderful contribution that a retail space can bring to the street edge, which is just about everywhere else along Johnson Street. So I think that needs to be really carefully thought out, and it might need more covering or a greater amount of covering so that it could be actually inhabited by restaurants in those off seasons. And then we're just dealing maybe with the winter. The residential and commercial entries are a little bit ambiguous. They're right beside each other. They're not distinguished at least the way they represented them. I think you need to think about ways to make them more distinguishable from one another. I did look carefully at your plan. I thought, boy, if you could put the residential entry on the southeast corner and the commercial entry on the northeast corner, then you would solve this and you'd solve the that kind of alcove issues. But I know in section that doesn't work at all. So, but there might be other ways that you can kind of separate or at least create a visual separation between the two. So in respect to that alcove, it's a question, I guess. You don't have to answer it, but it's just a question I'll ask is, if it's possible, you might just consider extending the stairs that are on that southeast corner all the way to the property line and just creating a wider stair, and that'll help you resolve that alcove, place where dead cats go to die place. In terms of site planning, I don't have any issues. In terms of building design, I think the massing and the scale and the form and character are all consistent with the OCP. It's very clean and simple, quite like that. I'd ask you to confirm that the elevator overrun that's shown in the current drawings is actually an elevator overrun that it's not going to extend beyond the parapet. I think that would change your north elevation, your perception of the building, looking down on it from Johnson Street. So don't have the answer here. The facade articulation, I think, is very tidy, and I think it's well proportioned. You rely on the use of cementitious cladding, so that's a double-edged sword. It works really well when it's detailed well. It doesn't necessarily work very well when it's not detailed well. So I will ask you a question. I'll ask you to answer it. Is the color strategy for the reveals in the Hardy panel? You propose them to be the same color as the panel or a contrasting color?
Most probably it will be contrasting color. We will go with dark gray.
Okay. I would encourage you to rethink that. Ken, I'll get to that in a second here. And then how are the panels fastened to the substrate? Are they face fastened, or do you have a reveal or a hidden fasteners?
It could be reveal. Actually, we didn't think about this at this point, but yeah, it's mainly the cement board panels are faced fastened most of the time. Yeah.
Okay. I know the city doesn't have a in the OCP, they don't really speak to that material and how that material is used. They speak to stucco and I think to vinyl, but they don't speak to hardy. So I guess we can't really say much, but I guess I just encourage you to really think about the color strategy. Right now, you're representing the building as a kind of a monolithic white, which I think is really nice. And you're not showing any fasteners on your building. So what you will actually get could be quite different than what you're showing us. So I quite like what you're showing us. So just think about as you continue to design based on what you're showing us. I do like the longboard. That's quite nice. And the dark colored frames. So again, you're representing your building with dark colored frames at grade and in the building. For the longest time we saw in Surrey these frames being presented, but they get because of availability or cost cutting, they disappear from the project and they turn around and be white or beige or something else, or anodized, which is not so bad. So I'd encourage you to, if that's part of your design, I think it is part of your aesthetic, and that's part of the reason why I think your design is quite successful. Just encourage you to make sure those stay in the project to the very end. I don't know if the city has any leverage to make sure that they do remain in the project, but encourage that to happen. And the black parapet cap, again, I would just rethink that. Again, you're representing the building's monolithic form, and then you put just remember, it's just a inexpensive metal cap that's going to draw a lot of attention to it, and it's not going to be executed particularly well, perhaps. So if it's maybe the same color as the building, then it disappears as a feature. And then I got to dip my toes into landscaping. Is there any possibility whatsoever to get any planting in the lane?
Sorry, so which lane? Oh, the back.
Yeah, the winter lane.
Oh, well, currently we don't have the space for the landscape due
Okay.
to the site plan. So, yeah.
Okay. So thank you. Last comment is in order to achieve what you've done with the courtyard, you've had to introduce twice as many exit stairs into your design, which probably doesn't matter a whole bunch on the upper floors. I think you've done this just to satisfy the exiting on the second floor. It doesn't need to happen. You don't need 4 stairs to exit the top floor. You don't need 4 stairs to exit the lower floor, at the lowest floor, but you do need it to exit the second floor. So the decision you're making on the second floor, which is an exiting requirement by the BC Building Code, what it's doing is it's filling up your ground floor with circulation. And I think it comes at the expense of the size of your retail unit. And I'm not a retail person. I know we got somebody who has some experience with retail, so that's great. I guess Sharon. But 1,000 square feet seems really small, and at 500 square feet dividing into 2 seems really, really small. So a decision that's being made on the second floor, I think, has maybe an impact on what's happening on the ground floor. And I just wonder if there's a way that you can work with your code consultant to find an alternate solution on the second floor that allows you to potentially delete two of those exit stairs off the upper floors, and therefore totally simplify your first level floor and give you more options to do what you want to on the first floor, which maybe you may make a larger CRU. And so that's it.
Thank you.
Sorry for taking so long, everybody.
So I'm just gonna give the applicant an opportunity. Is there anything that you wanted to add in response to the list of comments there? You've got your screen up, go for it.
I'll just comment. Actually, great comments. Thanks a lot, Robert. I really appreciate your comments and your thoughts about it. The stairs, actually, it came on the third floor because if we have only two stairs, we will have one door on each side. Then we will have
Yeah.
one unit. It has only one direction of exiting. So we should have two.
Yeah. Sorry, I told you, sorry, I meant the second floor of the residential, which is the third floor of the project. You're right, sorry. But this is the floor I was talking about.
Yeah, the requirement came because if we have only this door here and this door there, then these two units will have only one way of exiting rather than two options, two opposite directions of exiting. This is why the code consultant commented that to add the other stairs. But we will when we start designing it, we started with only two exit stairs. Eventually, we ended with 4. I hope we could just stay with the 2 exit stairs, but it wasn't possible. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think we have one panel member, Casey. You haven't had a chance to provide any comments or questions yet.
Yeah, that's okay. Going last makes that a little easier. Yeah, I really liked the design of this building. I thought it's incredibly difficult to do anything that's kind of creative on a 6,000 square foot lot. So my opinion really is that this courtyard is a great feature. I've been into condos and sold condos where they had this courtyard, and I mean, they're old buildings that had made it work. I'm not a civil engineer by any means, but I have to imagine that that there are ways to make these work at this point. So I think that it's a great feature for the building. I like the cedar-like aluminum. I've seen that that work really well in different developments. If I go down my list, I think Robert, you commented on the 1,000 square foot unit. Right now, we're seeing that be kind of the sweet spot, so 1,000 or 1,100 square foot, which I also had thought was small at one point, but that seems to be what commercial tenants in the valley, anyways, are looking for. So, so I wasn't too concerned about that. Who knows? Maybe 500 would work for some people. It seems small to me, but you're right. Who knows? Yeah, I think the parkade, I thought, again, there's not much you can do with that much space. I'll respectfully disagree with some people. I think a reduction in parking is kind of the way that we're headed at this moment. I like that they're even offering a compass pass. Even if it's just for a year, I think that having a compass pass is a lot cheaper if I had to buy that than owning a car. So I think we're in a really good location. It's also more than one parking per unit, which in this location I think will work really well. So so I was okay with that as well. As far as a few questions. Wondering, I know we're going to be required now to put air conditioning in these units. I'm curious what kind of air conditioning you guys are considering for this.
Thank you, Casey. We can use most of the projects we are seeing today is we are using split units. We will have the outdoor unit sitting on the balcony and then the interior. It could be this way.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, the condenser on the balcony, we've seen them on the roof too. I know that's it's always difficult to decide where to put those, and we have this debate often, so it's not an easy decision, but good to know. As far as the first floor, so where the CRU is, and to add to what other people have said, the only thing I could think of is through all those doors. There's quite a few hallways. You may already be designing for this, but it'd be nice to have some glazing or some see-through for those septet things that Robert had mentioned. But to be able to have some visual as people are going through, so there's no hidden hallways, would be really nice. And then, yeah, in your parkade, you've set columns back. You've made this a pretty, for the size, I think it'll be an easy-ish to maneuver, again, considering the space you have. So yeah, I think that I'll keep it at that.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I know Sharon, you have to go at 5, so you've had your hand up for a while, and Lynn, you had your hand up as well. So what I'll do is go to Sharon first. You're good, Lynn? Okay, so we'll go back to Sharon, and then that way she has the opportunity to sneak out, and we'll see if anyone else has any follow-up questions or comments. So go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you, Anne. I do want to what she said, as far as I love, and I didn't get to say this, I love the fact that it has a courtyard. I think it's fantastic. We have all had to endure going into places that in the back corner, you know, if the lights turned off, you would never find your way because it's so dark because there's no natural light. The fact that all of these units have front and back light is fabulous. I just personally also agree. I think it should be covered and it would be more like an atrium. And if not, is there any way of opening it and closing it? Having opening in the summer and closing it in the winter, I have a huge concern about the snow. We are getting way more snow and ice and everything else, and I don't know how you get the snow plow in there. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how it gets cleaned. That is a concern. I think very easily it could be, as far as commercial units, I think it could very easily be 2 500 square foot. Commercial space is very expensive, depending on the type of business you're going to put in there. You did mention restaurants. I don't know if all of these people living there are going to want to have venting and all of that kind of stuff for cooking coming up into those residential units. So I don't know if it would be a restaurant. I don't know if that's appropriate. Again, that's something that the owners need to look at. And if they're selling them, it is a thing. If people go, oh my gosh, I don't want a fish and chips place down below me, it is a thing. And the other thing I do want to comment on the parking, because buyers of today, parking and storage, that whole thing is changing because buyers of today are younger. They don't have stuff. And a lot of them, if they're a couple, they have one car and they're using transit. So there is a future of change in parking, and it is hard for us to get around it because we are married to our cars. So I don't know, that would be part of the parking study, and that would be going forward, which isn't, I know, our place, but realistically for commercial, we are trying to get a sustainable walkability, transit oriented. That's why we're having businesses here, and that's why we have mixed use, so that people can live, they work from home, it may not even have a car. So I think that is something to be considered, and that's just a comment. So that's what I wanted to say. And that's it.
Thank you.
I gotta go.
Okay. Well,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you, Lynn.
Bye. Bye-bye. Okay, so we should still have our quorum, which is good. So what I'll do is just see if there's anybody who has a second round of questions or comments. Robert, you can go first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the parking is a challenge, and we've got at least those 2 stalls that are parallel parked against the south property wall that have to actually back out of the gate. And the handicap stall also has to back out of the gate. And the stall beside the handicap stall has to back out of the gate. So boy, if you could ever get a parking relaxation in this project, you'd really simplify the parking down there. I think it's not safe to have people having to back all the way up that drive aisle. They can probably do a 3-point turn, but the handicap stall cannot do a 3-point turn if all the cars are parked in the parking lot. So I think the city needs to just take a look at with the applicant, the parking. I think it's going to be a big challenge to get out of the parking, or you're going to back in, I guess, and drive straight out. But and I'm particularly worried about the handicap stall and the one beside it, because they have no choice but to back out of the parking lot. That's my final comment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's noted. Anyone else for a second round of comments? Going once, going twice? Okay, I think so. Everyone's had an opportunity to provide feedback. So at this point, I think what we've heard, I'm just going to try really quickly and go through my notes. I think there's definitely some discussion still related to the parking. There's been a fair bit of discussion related to the courtyard and to the landscaping measures. We had a number of comments relating to septet pieces and to some of the materials and the exterior design as well. I'm trying, this is very high level summary, so please don't think I'm ignoring any of your comments. I'm just trying to keep it to themes at one point here. I think the other one was related to, we've covered it, parking, landscaping, septet, some of the exterior materials, and we will have a summary of all of those comments through our meeting minutes. So, and then there were some comments with regards to access as well from the streetscape, I think, into the building. That was another piece with regards to, and from the building access points as well. And again, I recognize that's a very high level summary and it does not capture everything that you have said. So what we'd be looking for now is a motion from the committee or the panel. Sorry, I do committees in the other parts of the organization. I have to knock the term panel into my head again. So there are some options within the staff memo that was provided. You're welcome to use those or modify those. But essentially what we're looking for is something from the committee at this point. So I'll turn it over to the committee members. I feel like I should be playing background music for you while you're thinking about this too.
Can you give us the page number of where those were?
Sure.
I've lost my place. I'm way down in the weeds here.
Page 24 of 59 in the agenda.
Hi, Anne.
Yes.
Can one of the options be defer a vote on this until some of these issues have been addressed? Because I find it hard to vote yes or no on this when septet is an issue and landscape's an issue and parking's an issue, which might totally change the entire project. So
what you can do is pass a motion or make a motion rather that recommends that the applicant consider a number of different changes to their package. And we can bring applications back to the panel for a second time around. So you could make a motion saying that that you would like to see these areas of change and let the applicant go away and take that and then return to the panel. That can be part of your motion.
And we have to identify that list of things to change.
Yes.
Now?
Yes, yes, because they need direction from the panel to go ahead with the next, to move forward, basically. So what we can do is somebody is welcome to take a stab at starting a motion and we can, massage it and build it out together with the feedback that you had from the back and forth with the applicant and the comments and questions that you had. So we have time to kind of craft it well, right now. You don't have to come up with the whole thing yourself. We can do it as a group effort.
I would put forward the motion for option 2, which was the design panel recommends that to council that the major development permit application for this address be approved with the following changes. And I'll just raise the first two questions, or raise the first two issues. One is the feasibility of the parking in terms of just the pragmatics of moving in and out. And number 2, I think that southeast corner of the interface between the building and the property has to be solved. You have to get rid of the septet issues. Also get rid of septet issues inside. In fact, you have to solve all the septet issues inside the building with the access to the CRU and that southeast corner.
Okay. Okay, so what we have so far is a motion that the advisory design panel recommends to council that the major DP application for 1363 Johnson Road be approved with the following changes, including the feasibility of the parking and the septet issues be resolved, especially with regards to the southeast corner, but that all the septet issues listed by the panel be resolved. So in order to have that on the floor, I need someone to second that motion.
Before we do that, can we fill out this list rather than vote in individually? Because I have
Absolutely.
wanting the courtyard landscape to be reviewed in detail, which includes the stormwater tank.
Okay.
And including, sorry, and I guess that would be number 3, and then number 4 would be to somehow represent future signage on the building.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, is the future signage subject to a signage permit application? Is it not independent from what we're looking at today?
There'll be a sign permit requirement for any signage on the building, and signage can be incorporated within the development permit as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I guess I'm not specifically talking about signage. I'm more about addressing the building. So there's an address on the building, which a lot of buildings don't have, at least easily visible.
Okay, that is captured then. Are there any other items that the panel members would like listed in this motion?
Is it okay to ask a quick question?
Yeah.
With and Robert, I get where you're coming from with these. I'm just wondering, I'd imagine they'd need us to be a little bit more specific with the septet requirements. Has a traffic engineer, you said you've got that TIA. They've looked at all of the turning radiuses, I would imagine, within that parkade. Yeah, so they know that it can work, and it may not be ideal to back out, but it is possible to back out. And we are working with a very tight site. I imagine that if I got told I either get a parking stall or I don't, but if I get one, I have to back out, that I would choose a backing out parking stall. So I would think we should leave the parking. I think that was one of the items. And I don't think that there's, people could disagree for sure, but I think that we would move forward with as that's laid out. For the septic concerns, I think the entryway was a great point, Robert, and having like even just a different color of the entryway to make that clearly septed, and then hopefully that covers Linda's as well, because maybe you can clearly label the address on that door as well. So I think maybe there's an easy solution there for that concern. The entering, I thought I had read, and then maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I thought I had read that the CRU actually, like there was a good separation between residential and commercial as far as how they have access. So maybe you have a chance to comment on that, because if I'm understanding correctly, I think people are under the impression that it's not that way.
Sure, let's ask the applicant to comment on that, and you're welcome to bring up the floor plan again if you need.
Thank you very much. So right now we have the access will be through this stair. This door will be locked, or it will be open from one way only. So this door will be locked. These doors will open only from above. So the only way you can move is that way. This door will be locked. This door will be locked from this side. It will, because we are using it to exit. The direction of exit, it's the other way. So no one will be able to enter to the building. They will have only one route, which is going to the CRU. So somehow it is protected.
No, it isn't. That's the weakest point in your design, is that back door. That is what the septet will they'll notice, they'll go. Once somebody's inside that, you have no control over them. And if there's anybody coming out of the residential into that corridor, they don't know they're there until it's too late. The door closes behind them. They're trapped, right? So I think, I can bring it up, or septet will bring it up, I'm sure. I don't know if there's another way around it. This is such, so I'll go back to, hopefully not take up too much time. For Casey's point is the parking is what it is in the site. And I don't know if you work with the planners to actually remove those commercial stalls off the back end of the building and move them to street parking or find some other arrangement, because it's right now the most viable way for them to get access to commercials to go all the way up to Thrift and come back all the way down. And somebody, you know, in a wheelchair, somebody's not going to do that. So these are not viable commercial stalls. I don't think, boy, your Strata Corp is not going to like the idea of allowing strangers to enter into a circulation system that the residences use. I know you got another point of security beyond that, but once they're inside that corridor, you know, they're sleeping in there. There's kind of no way to manage that unless you actually have security going through there all the time. So, and I think it's a real concern, and it's one I think the design can address. I think there's also other ways to address it, but I don't think that should be your commercial access unless it's totally dedicated corridor right to the front of the building.
Okay. So what we can do so far is we can keep everything within the motion, because you'll all have an opportunity once the motion is seconded to then vote on the motion, and it can be modified from there. So let's keep with the list if there's anything further to add to the list. And I see Howard has his hand up, and then I'll go to Lynn. I don't know who put their hands up first, I'm sorry. So I'll go to Howard.
I'd like to propose that there be an option for covering the atrium.
Okay, so we can put that in the list. And what I will just advise at this point is that whatever is in the ultimate motion, the applicant is going to take that away. They will assess based on what they think they can and can't do with the application, and they'll provide that information back to staff. And when this gets presented to council, the ADP comments will be included because the minutes will form part of that package to council, and the applicant's response basically will also form part of it. So whether the applicant will have to explain why or why not they're able to achieve what the ADP is suggesting, or why they can't, and for what reason. So just so everyone knows what the process will look like getting this on its way to council. Okay, Lynn, you had something you wanted to add maybe to the list?
I don't want to add. I just want to say that I feel that, first of all, there's a requirement for parking in the city. So no one's making that up. It actually is a requirement. And I think that has to be taken seriously by council. But I feel like they're trying to squish so many parking spaces into this small space that it's going to be useless in the end. I agree with Robert in terms of some of those spaces backing out onto that lane. Nobody's going to want to do that. I mean, you know, maybe if you're somewhat of a daredevil or something, you can, but honestly, that's just unsafe. It's and the area where this building is going to be is already high demand parking for commercial, for street parking. It's a busy area. So I am concerned about the parking, but part of me says reduce it and make it more usable if you're not going to go down another level, and look at the compass cards, because we did that up above Thrift in one of the buildings there, but it was on a 10-year basis. It was a housing agreement because it was affordable rental. So
great.
That's it for me.
The compass card piece is definitely part of their proposal. The details aren't finalized yet, and that will form part of the negotiation through the rezoning piece. But that's definitely part of their proposal, just so that the panel is aware.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I think council's going to, in the end, have to make that decision about the parking, because that's a big one.
Yep. The whole thing rests with council in the end.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe I'll read back what we have so far, and we'll go from there. So we have that the advisory design panel recommends to council that the major development permit application for 1363 Johnson Road be approved, subject to, with the following changes, but I think it should be subject to the following being addressed, or something like that maybe is more appropriate. That being, I have the feasibility of parking, that the septet issues be resolved. And we can say that the septet issues identified by the panel be resolved, because that will be more all-encompassing. That the courtyard landscaping is to be reviewed in detail, including the stormwater tank. That the drawing package represent future signage and addressing on the building, and that an option for covering the courtyard be considered. How is that? Ian?
Thank you. I'm prepared to second the move. Second this with the addition of consideration for increased green infrastructure or low intensity development elements to the development, and that could be through the streetscape or through the building itself.
Could you just repeat that one more time?
For the applicant to consider increased integration of green infrastructure elements, which may be incorporated, I suppose, through the public realm, the streetscape, the rear lot, and or the building itself, such as through the courtyard or roof.
Okay. So if everyone is comfortable with the motion, then we can get that seconded. Everyone, Linda, you have your hand up. Are you seconding it, or are you just? Okay, so it's seconded. Thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Looking for hand wave or anything? Nope. If I don't see any, then I'm going to call the question on the motion. All in favor? And you'll raise your hands physically. Okay, so that carries. So thank you very much, everyone. That is our first advisory design panel meeting. Thank you again for coming out and for making it work, even from faraway places. We appreciate your time, and we will see you again, and have a wonderful evening, everybody. And thank you to the applicants for coming as well.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone. Bye.
I know.